Isn't it a lovely day to be caught in the rain? You were going on your way, now you've had to remain. So let the rain pitter-patter, 'cause it really doesn't matter if the skies are gray. As long as I can be with you, it's a lovely day. It's gonna be a lovely day because I'm here again at the Met to meet one of my favorite curators, Stephanie Herdrich, who is a John Singer Sargent expert. I'm here at the Met to meet with someone who I will be very bold to say is my friend. Can I say that?
I hope so, yes.
This is Stephanie Herdrich, Associate Curator of American Painting and Sculpture, and she knows a lot about John Singer Sargent, who is my favorite painter. She even co-authored this book.
That was an amazing project. We cataloged all of our watercolors and drawings by Sargent, so it was just a great starting point for kind of a lifelong love affair with Sargent.
And that's what we have in common, is that we both love Sargent. So I'll tell you a little bit about how this journey started for me. I've always wanted to paint portraits. It's been on a very long list of things to learn. And I always knew that eventually I would go out there in the world and something would spark, something would happen that would make me know, okay, this is it. Now you start. And in 2015, I came here with my mom and we came to this Sargent show, and it was a moment I'll never forget. I walked into the gallery and when I looked around, I knew this is it. I want to learn how to paint like this man. And what I didn't realize was that he really is so widely revered. Like the portrait painters of today, over and over and over, when I find somebody that's painting beautifully today, almost all of them reference Sargent.
And we like to say that he's a painter's painter for just the reason you're saying. The artists come and stand in front of these works and are just in awe and bowled over by his talent and the brilliance of his technique. I'd say very specifically his ability to make it look effortless. As you know from looking at his work and from painting yourself, it's not effortless, but he puts a lot of effort into making it look easy. The Italians had a word for it called sprezzatura, right? Which is kind of a studied nonchalance, or making the difficult look easy. And that's really the hallmark of his style.
Absolutely. There's also another Italian word that pops up over and over and over, bravura.
Yes.
Like
yes.
this, like
exactly.
I've read accounts where sitters wrote in their journals about how he painted, and they likened it to a man with a sword, like holding it at arm's length, looking back and forth between the sitter and the canvas, and then with such confidence, like a bam on the canvas. And you really see that, especially on something like this. This is the Wyndham sisters,
exactly,
which is my favorite painting that you have here. And you can really see that on this canvas. When I'm standing so close to it, I think, this doesn't look like anything. And then you step away, like you walk away, everything starts to make so much sense.
He would go back from a distance, study the composition, study the sitters, how they appeared, and sitters described that he would kind of dash madly towards the canvas and bling, place the stroke just right. And I think you see that in this area, right? These very, specific, but really fluid stroke that create the textures of the textiles, the fabrics, the sense of opulence here.
Yeah, like this right here.
Right.
You can't argue that wasn't one stroke.
Right.
You can see the color underneath.
Yes.
So we know for sure that he didn't go like this and then go like this again. It was just a dash.
Right, and the sense of kind of energy, vigor, I would even say athleticism, right? That this is not a timid stroke, right? That there is a confidence in that this bravura technique that you're describing, a certainty.
The other thing that I think is spectacular about this painting, which is so characteristic of his work, is how dark the shadows are and what's going on in the shadows. I'm saying all of this because I try to emulate these techniques when I'm painting someone, and I'll be mixing on my palette, okay, this is Van Dyke Brown, whatever, and I put it on, and then I think I did a great job, and then I look at one of his pieces next to mine and I'm like, not dark enough. I say to myself, you were too scared. You thought that that was already dark, but look at how dark that is, and you can see things in there.
Well, this is an amazing composition, right? Because this is a gigantic painting, as you see, I mean, less in comparison to it, and he has given up almost half of the composition just to the background, right? So that, I think, is remarkably bold. You have this 3 sisters here at the lower part in front of us, life-size, and then to leave the top part of the canvas practically a dark void is quite remarkable. But to your point, he gives us just the glimmer of this interior, and this was a painting set in their home in London, so it's giving us all of the trappings of this very elegant interior, kind of emerging from the shadows, not quite competing with the sitters, but giving us all this information. And that framed picture in the center of the composition is a portrait of their mother by a British painter, George Frederick Watts. And if we could see that better, or we go back to look at reproductions of that painting, he's actually kind of echoing details. So connecting
Really?
These sitters to their mother, but also a kind of artistic lineage for himself, putting him in the tradition of these great British painters.
I did some deep dives into this painting, and I ended up coming across journal entries by a couple of the
Yes,
sisters,
yeah.
and one of them was writing that Sargent came and for our sitting today, and he scraped off the sister's head, and Papa was
Yes.
devastated
Yes.
because he thought that the head was perfect,
Yes.
and Sargent just scraped it off and said, no, it's wrong. That is something that I find fascinating, that if it wasn't right for him, he believed you couldn't fumble around and fix it.
He really cultivated this style to make it look effortless. And I think that in trying to repair or paint over a mistake, it becomes labored and it has a completely different aspect to it.
Have you ever heard that quote? I don't know where it's from. I mean, it's a couple centuries old, I think. Painting is easy. All you have to do is mix the right color and put it in the right place.
No, I haven't heard that.
Have you heard that?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was very sarcastic.
No.
But like things like this is what I've attempted. I'm like, mix the color, find it, and bam.
Yeah.
And then like the next day I'm looking at it, I'm like, what's wrong? And it's like, oh, it was like 3 millimeters off.
Right,
And that's
right.
why the eye looks like, oh.
Right, right. No, it's really amazing. And there's also a sense of people who watched him work, a sense of magic, right, that they couldn't understand how it all came together. But there's another great quote, which you might have come across, where Sargent said something like, oh, a portrait is a painting with a little bit something wrong about the mouth, so that, you know, to your point about the sister not liking how the head turned out, you know, it was difficult for him to please the patrons sometimes, and how he thought they should appear and how they thought they appeared was not always the same thing.
I love that he stuck to his guns, though. I mean, that's another aspect of his life that I really admire. It's also part of the reason why I idolize him, because my career in the arts has presented me with situations in which I've had to really stop and say, the patron who is paying you and paying the rent this month is saying they don't like this. But you, as the creator and the artist, creatively, you know that this is great. So what do you do?
Right.
And for me, I stand my ground. Too bad.
Right.
Don't pay me. That's fine. And to know that that's what he was like, nope, it's wrong. It doesn't matter if you like it. It's not right for me.
And you know what he did eventually, right, is that he quit painting portraits.
Exactly.
By 1907, he just says, like, forget it. I've had enough of this. At the height of his success as a portraitist, he could have had 1 million commissions. He says, no, you know, I'm done. I'm tired of trying to please patrons all the time. I want to do other things.
I come here to look at this and to hope and to wish that I can somehow impart some of this technique on what I'm doing, and then I meet you and you know so much, and you're sharing that with me, and then I'm leaving and going out there trying to paint. You know, these paintings pass through the generations, and you and I will come and go. How do you see your role here?
Well, obviously, you know, just taking care of these works of art, teaching people about them, sharing what I know about Sargent, about the sitters, about the art, about the period with people. One of my greatest pleasures is to share these moments and this sense of wonder in front of a piece of art. This is a beautiful painting. The magic of how it was created, of how these abstract forms come together to make these sisters of over 100 years ago, there is wonder in that and amazement. And these are things that bring the moment alive to us in so many different ways. And I think that's amazing. I mean, art has a real ability to connect us.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yeah. So Stephanie, one of the things that I spend many, many hours doing is looking at Sargent's studies, because his finished portraits indicate really the height of his professional life. But in his leisure time, or when he was on his own, he liked to go out into nature and just paint, yes, right? 100%.
I mean, this is something that is instilled in him from his earliest childhood. His mother was an amateur artist, and there's a story that she required all of her children to finish at least one sketch a day. So from the time he's very young, he is sketching constantly, drawing, and then working in watercolor. And you sense, I mean, he's incredibly prolific, and this idea that I sense sometimes that he almost couldn't stop painting. And a friend later says that, there were always sketches piled up in his studio, sort of half finished in the middle, or well, we can talk about how you define finished at all.
Yeah.
But he also traveled a lot as a child. His family was moving constantly around Europe. He spent his whole childhood in Europe. So this interest in exploration and recording what he saw is also really deeply ingrained in him. So as he's losing interest in portrait painting, he's more and more out traveling in Europe and painting what he sees. This is a wonderful painting done in Italy at the marble quarries of Carrara after 1910. And this is really kind of a painting about light on stone, light on marble, and the way he's capturing these kind of warm, glowing tones in the piles of rocks. And then also looking at these workers who did this really dangerous job quarrying marble the same way they had done it, since the Renaissance and antiquity, of course, because these are the historic quarries where, for example, the marble for Michelangelo's David came from. Really? And Sargent's going there and, studying these men at work. And it's a really interesting perspective, right? You see, these are the ropes that are being used to lower this massive block of marble down this steep slope. So it's dangerous work, it's arduous work, and he's creating this amazing, plunging perspective point of these ropes and the work. But again, as I said, really it's about capturing the light and shadow and the sense of warmth on this stone.
So as an art student, one of our regular tasks is just going out there and studying, to always have a sketchbook, to sometimes take your paints and your canvas and to go out and to find things to paint. So one of the things that's very interesting to me is I'll be in a random situation waiting for a train, and I'll be looking around thinking, oh, there's nothing here to draw, or there's nothing here to paint. That was early on. And the more I started studying Sargent, the more I started seeing there is always something to draw. There is always something to paint, because it's your perspective that will make it beautiful. It's the composition. There was a stairwell that I saw, a study of a stairwell in Italy, and it's just stairs, and the light is hitting one side of the staircase. It was something I've never seen. And my friend sent it to me last week, and I just was like, damn it, damn it. He was so good at every little things. And I know in your collection you have his sketchbooks. You have many of his sketchbooks, right? So you've seen these things firsthand. And the other thing about this that I think we forget is he didn't have a camera with him. He didn't have a phone. He didn't take a picture of this and then go to his studio and study it. He was painting it in person. And what I don't understand is, how do you capture the light? Like in this tiny corner here, you can feel that it's that golden hour. You can feel that it's that time in the evening when the sun is going down, and it's about 30 minutes. I mean, I see it on the Upper West Side all the time, and the tops of the buildings all turn this orangey pink. And it's right there. How?
But also it's just a minute too, right?
Yeah.
It's not, but he's studying always, I think, and years of studying always, and thinking about the light and how the light is hitting and where it's falling, and constantly aware of the world. And then, we have early sketchbooks by him where he's making notes about light and color.
Really?
So there are pencil sketches, and he'll say, like, boat is darker than the deck.
Like he's writing that in?
Exactly, yes, and giving like relative values to the tones. So thinking about how he looks at the world and processes it, I think in color values.
Wow.
I mean, I'm also kind of convinced that he saw the world differently than we did. I mean, that whatever it was about how he cultivated his eye and his training, that he just, his vision of the world and how he saw color and light was remarkable. Yeah. It's certainly different than mine as a non-artist, but.
I think I started off as a novice with my goal being I would love someone to sit for me and I would love to be able to paint them. Right. And now it's completely changed. Now I would love to be able to accurately capture the light.
Right.
Like that is what he has taught me. I know that so many works of art that are out there and that are sold often go into private collections, but I would like to make a plea to the public. If you have things out there that are valuable, give them to museums, because people like me who want to learn, this is how we learn. We come in and we spend hours and hours with our nose as close as possible to the painting, and we really look, and it's not the same as a book. You cannot learn colors and textures and the opacity of the paint by looking at a reproduction. You need to go to the museums, and these institutions, they keep these things safe, but they share them with the public. So Stephanie, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being like a little link to this man who is long gone, but you bring him back to life. And you really help me when I go home and when I'm standing in front of my blank canvas and think, what would Sargent do?
Well, it's my pleasure, and it feels like a great honor and privilege to work with these amazing paintings and to share them with people. And I love, as I said, connecting with people over these works and, geeking out over every brushstroke and how Sargent painted it and created this magic for us to share.